from the frame of I'm gonna die someday came how can I play today? To the person living in alignment, just here and now is peace. Everything is happening in divine timing. We're smart enough, we're capable enough, and we have the capacity to build projects and businesses that uplift other people that are truly from the heart. But true spirituality to me is
Awesome. We have episode 19. We have Jack Moses on board, a really awesome lad, and I'm excited for our conversation today, man.
me too. Thank you for having me. 19 seems like a magical number. So
Uh-huh.
I had been put on to Nikola Tesla a few months ago, and he has this quote like, if you understood the significance of the numbers three, six, and nine, you'd understand the secrets to the universe. And ever since then, I've only set my alarms to end at three, six, or nine. And 19 keeps popping up for me over and over again. We just missed it. It's
Yeah.
422, but Danny Miranda brought me a book today that also is like a 369 journal.
No way. Yeah.
And so it's fascinating that this is episode 19. Magic is in the air. I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Glad I could contribute to the number cosmos out there.
Yes.
Awesome. I think I discovered you, a few months back through, I had Danny Miranda on the podcast and some of your friends as well in Austin, Texas. And I really resonate with your journey on how you were kind of going through this whole phase of like, what am I supposed to do in my life? And then now you're kind of living on in this path of alignment. And I want to kind of start all the way back when you were in college, when you were joining these business clubs back at Northwestern. And could you kind of tell me how that experience kind of shifted your perspective on what you're kind of supposed to do in life and how you want to live more in alignment with yourself?
Yeah. So when I first got to Northwestern and was playing football, school was kind of just in the back of my awareness. It was like, oh yeah, I have to go to school. Like, what should I study? Oh, they have economics. They don't have a business school here. Economics seems like something that would go on to make a lot of money. I guess I'll choose that. So that was the extent of my thinking in terms of like making money in business. So I did that for 2 years. I worked like a 3 month finance internship, and my soul just felt misaligned. I didn't know to call it that at the time, but I was
Mm,
burnt out. I had addictions. I was always escaping reality, and something just felt off. And so I started to go on to this personal development, spiritual journey. Again, I didn't know to call it a spiritual journey until much later, but I went on a personal development, self exploration journey. And after that first internship, I decided to backpack Europe that summer for the first time. And I experienced the profound freedom of solo travel or travel with a friend and having nothing to do and no obligations. And I got super into writing. And I was like, how can I figure out how to make money online writing so that I don't have to work a 9 to 5 job? I feel like it's going to hinder my potential and I could be anybody I want, I could dream of if I don't follow that traditional path. So it was a slow, slippery slope, stepping stone, I would say, like into creating a life of freedom. But at first, it was my limited awareness on what was possible in the world that led me to choose economics and finance in the first place.
mm. And we were mentioning it earlier before we pressed record was how you're thinking of going back to Northwestern. Could you kind of tell me like that recent development and
Yeah.
kind of what led up to that realization that you might just want to head back again?
Yeah. So I likely won't go back to Northwestern. If
Mhm.
I was only going back for academics in school, I would. But the
Yeah.
real deep reason that I want to go back and finish a degree is to play football for 1 or 2 more years. So I
Mm.
had an experience this past week where I was in Peru for 2 weeks in the jungle
Yeah.
and basically sitting with myself. And I had an experience where on the plant medicine that I was doing at the time, ayahuasca, where I felt my body decaying. I felt what it was going to feel like when I die. And I felt like what it's going to feel like
Wow.
when my body can no longer move and play and dance and express itself. And I came to this place within me that, holy shit, I'm only 23. Why not play while I can? I feel like I'm living in alignment with my long-term future, my long-term vision, why I was put on the planet, writing,
Mm.
speaking. helping people discover their purpose, helping people awaken to their potential. I'm very grateful that I'm clear on that. So
Yeah.
now in the immediate, what can I do that's also fun? What can I do that's also play? And so playing football, playing quarterback came back to me. It's like, I want to
Mhm.
do this just for fun. And I can still do all the things I'm doing on the side and finish the degree, which might open up doors that I can't see yet. So I'm in the phase and the process right now of like reapplying. I'll probably go apply to a school after this podcast and just
Wow,
evaluating
nice.
the
Yeah.
options.
Uh-huh.
But I'll end it with this. A friend gave me a great quote yesterday. He said, "It's either this or better." And I love it. And it's been in my awareness ever since he said it.
Hmm.
And so what I realized is, okay, even if I don't get to go back and play quarterback, even if I don't go back and play football, I'm still living my dream right now in Austin and I love it here and my life is beautiful. So it's either this, what I'm doing on a daily basis right now, or it's something
Yeah.
better. It's something grander. It's something greater. So I love
I
this
love
frame.
this. Yeah. And I think your experience in Peru a couple weeks prior was you mentioned it's very transformative. And I think you were touching on how like you physically felt that you were dying. And I'm kind of curious to explore more of that on what was that experience like and how does that change your view on just life and death in general?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm writing a newsletter about this, which is going to go much more in depth, but it
Hmm.
felt to me that something that ayahuasca does, this medicine, this plant medicine, this psychedelic,
Yeah.
is it flips your reality upside down and inside out, where you're perceiving reality through the frame of your subconscious mind rather than your conscious mind. And so I
Mm.
felt like I went inside of myself, and instead of seeing reality out here, all I could see was in here and feel in here. And what I've also learned is that she, ayahuasca, I'll refer to her as she because she is a spirit. She will show you what you need to see and what you need to feel in order to come into alignment and clarity with what you want to do right now. So, from the perspective of I'm going to die someday, the question became, what can I do now that inspires me? And in addition to all the writing and creating that I'm doing, what also inspires me is playing sports. And why not go do that on a real team with a real coach and a real structure and in a real
Yeah.
college while I can? So it's so interesting that from the frame of I'm going to die someday came how can I play today?
Mm. How do
Why
you
sacrifice now
yeah.
for later? Right? That's the
Yeah.
question. Why
Hmm.
sacrifice now?
Yeah. I also asked Danny Miranda this, but how do you define that? And do you think our consciousness and our spirit lives on after our physical body dies away? I know it's a very loaded
Yeah,
question, but
I
I'm
love
curious
the
to hear your
question,
take on it.
man.
Yeah.
I love the question. And I was exploring this for 10 days down there in the jungle. And
Mm.
so it's very fresh for me. I
Yeah.
think that death is what happens in the 3D material plane. Our body dies, but the essence of us, the spirit of us lives on. And from what I understand, is if we do not learn the lessons that we were meant to learn in this lifetime and complete our soul's mission, we will continue to come back again and again in human form or some other organic organism form again
Hmm.
and again until we awaken to the reality that we are the universe experiencing itself and escape the cycle of death
Mm.
and rebirth as they talk about in Buddhism. We escape the wheel of karma. We become one with reality. And from that place, our spirit no longer needs to occupy physical form and it exists in some higher ether. And
Mm.
you become an ascended master, or you just stay up in the spirit realm and you don't have to deal with all the suffering at being human.
Wow. You mentioned the soul's mission. What do you think that is?
It's different for everybody, I think.
Mm.
But again, from my understanding, the spirit within me and the spirit within you existed before we incarnated into this lifetime. And
Mm.
so before we incarnated into this lifetime, our soul and our spirit shows this physical body, it shows this name, it shows this family, it shows this location, and it shows the events that were going to happen to complete its mission. And so the mission, what exactly the mission is probably independent to everybody. but
Mhm.
I can only speak for mine. I feel my soul's mission is to awaken people to their true nature and actualize their potential as
Mm.
spirit entities occupying human bodies. And what becomes possible from that place? What can you go create? How would you go live your life? How would you go inspire others?
Mm. And it's really cool because when you were part of that, personal development journey back in college and a few years prior, you mentioned that later on you realized that it was a whole spiritual journey to begin with.
Yeah,
And for someone who's like, I don't know, I'm not really sure about this woo-woo stuff that's going on here. But it's like,
right.
what is kind of your case for spirituality, and what is that other side of the world that maybe some people haven't really seen yet?
Yeah, it's again a great question, dude. You're so good at this. I love it. I love these
Yeah,
questions.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you for having me on.
Mhm.
This is fun.
Yeah.
So, it's easy to get like if you haven't embarked on the spiritual path yourself, or you haven't tasted spirituality, which I'll get into what does spirituality
Mhm.
taste like? What does it feel like in a minute? What spirituality looks like from an outside view is just people who hold crystals or sit in a yoga posture or
Mhm.
meditate, right? And or listen to like some weird frequencies. And that gets confused with what is true, the essence of spirituality. Those things, if you just do those things without a true understanding, it just
Mhm.
becomes another form of religion. It's another form of ritual. But true spirituality to me is understanding where you came from and understanding where you'll return to, understanding that you are not the physical body you're occupying, nor are you your mind. My first glimpse into true, genuine spiritual realization, and I'm not enlightened, I'm not 100% spiritually realized, but I've
Mhm.
had glimpses. The first time I really glimpsed what does spirituality mean was truly feeling and realizing the illusion of Jack Moses, the illusion and the story of the ego,
Mhm.
and realizing that I am what's behind all of that. I am what's observing all of it. That is the spirit. That's spirituality to me.
It's almost like, I guess, kind of describing your instance was like you're kind of looking at yourself from like a third world perspective, seeing Jack just standing there, and then you're kind of out there looking at like your
Yes.
physical space. Is that
Right.
maybe
You're
like a correct? Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, you're like the awareness behind the awareness.
Wow. Hmm. Yeah, I think that's really cool. And I think you're also saying, I think you put out a tweet, it's like human beings are the ultimate mirrors for revealing where where you aren't free. And I'm curious to hear, was there kind of a moments in your life or moments in your life where you kind of felt that experience yourself?
Yeah, it happens every day. Like it's
Yeah.
constant.
Yeah.
Like
Uh-huh.
I've heard it put that you're always free until you're not. And so you walk around free, you're always free. You're doing what you want, you're being authentic, you're living as your true self. And something or somebody comes up in your environment that takes you out of freedom. So for me, it could be, oh, I notice I'm in the sauna and I'm talking to a cute girl and I try to like say a smart thing or I try to impress her, I get nervous. Okay, like that was a great mirror to reveal for me where I'm not free. Something else this summer that was interesting for me was I traveled Thailand for like 3 months
Yeah.
and I went to a lot of parties and a lot of raves and I was dancing a lot. And I realized every time I looked outside of myself at somebody else, I was looking in a mirror. Now, why was I looking in the mirror? Was I
Mm.
looking for validation? Was I looking to see if they like me? Was I looking to think if he thinks I'm cool? So everybody is a mirror for our freedom. And it's like the question we can ask ourselves is how do I alter my behavior in the presence of different types of people? So, in the presence of a very highly successful businessman who's 50 years old and has millions of dollars, do I act the same and do I come from the same place internally as when I talk to a 10-year-old kid on the street? Now, of course,
Mm.
the frame and the tone might be different, but are you putting on a character to impress anybody?
Mm. Yeah, so I guess like maybe the ultimate sign of like that you are grounded, it's like that spirit within you is like stays remains objective throughout every interaction, and then like it's that's where you get that groundedness from. I guess that's kind of what you're
Yes.
going at here. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think you're also really big on living in alignments, living authentically. And you're also saying how, when we're living in alignment with ourselves, it's as if God is just channeling through us and we're just the vehicle in whatever that higher power is just channeling through us. And what are the signs that people are living an authentic life versus people who are living authentically?
Hmm, another really good question. I think it's how much suffering you experience on a daily basis versus how much joy and presence and peace you experience on a daily basis. Right? If you're living a life completely inauthentic and completely misaligned, each waking moment is likely suffering. Maybe there's some periods uh, of joy throughout the day. Maybe there's some funny meme you see on Instagram. Maybe you like a Netflix show that you can turn your mind
Yeah.
off and escape into. But to the person living in alignment, there becomes no need for the Netflix show or the meme. You can still enjoy it, but
Mhm.
just here and now is peace. And again, for me, I'm not 100% there.
Yeah.
Like I'm definitely still suffering, but it's so inspiring to me to know people and know of people that reach that point inside of themselves where they're always at peace. There's a quote from this philosopher, spiritual teacher named Jiddu Krishnamurti, and he said, "Do you want to know my secret?" And the whole crowd was like, "Yes." And he's like, "I don't mind what happens." So just completely at peace throughout the entire day, not fighting with reality.
Mhm. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that. I forgot who said it, but this quote where like when you're at peace, whether something like that is good or bad that's happening to you, you remain almost constant. And it's like, how do you have
Mm-hmm.
that unwavering sense of peace? And maybe that's like kind of how when you're living in alignment, it's just that like this present moment right now without anything. It's like when if you're at peace, that's when you're really in that zone.
Yeah, and like coming to that place of peace
Yeah.
internally usually manifests externally as alignment, right? The inner world and the outer world are just they're mirrors. There's actually no separation. So the degree to which we experience misalignment in our job or in our life or the city we live in is a projection of misalignment internally.
Mhm. All right, I have a pretty good question for you. It's like, who
Yeah.
or what do you worship right now?
God, the present moment, the divine. Now, those words are so abstract, but
Yeah.
the Tao, but those words like the Tao. I was studying this last night with people in my apartment.
Hmm.
The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. It's the underlying fabric of reality that's just magical and mystical and brings things into my life and brings serendipitous synchronicities and I can't make it up and it's all too good to be true and I just bask in the gratitude of the present moment. That's what I worship is the here and now. That's all you can worship. And for me, the here and now presence, true stillness, that is the same thing as God or the Tao from my perspective.
That's an interesting point because when we look at the whole frame of time, it's like the past is just something that already happened. It's not gonna happen again. It's just something that exists in our mind, and the future is just like it's never really the future. We're just experiencing the present continuum of time. So it's like, how can we tap into that present, ever flowing state of time, which is like really interesting when
Yeah,
you think about
man,
it.
that's such a great point. And,
Yeah,
to answer your question actually again,
yeah.
what do I, it was, what do I
Worship.
idealize? Worship.
Yeah.
There is still a part of me. Okay, ideally, and I experience this a good amount, I'm worshiping the present moment. I'm fully here. But there
Mhm.
is still a part of me that worships the future, that worships an ideal, that worships an idea, that worships a story, a possible reality. And I get attached to that and I get lost in it.
Mhm.
But right, the only thing that exists is the here and now. The only thing that exists is presence. I watched a show called The Chosen, about
Uh-huh.
Jesus. And they had a little line in there like, oh, Jesus doesn't keep a calendar. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting, right? Like
Yeah.
this guy who's completely tapped into God, one with God, he doesn't live in the future. He's here. And it is only the human mind, the ego, that makes up stories about the past or ideas about the future, which are the root of
Mhm.
suffering. So, the answers are obvious. Putting into practice is the real work, though.
Yeah. It's so interesting because as humans, we've kind of tried to find a way to measure time. We've created clocks and calendars and days of the week, like weekends, weekdays, but it's just time. Like it's pretty crazy to think how we really box ourselves in like
Right.
these structures that we set for ourselves.
Yeah, time is only like relatively real, and time is only real
Yeah.
based on the human mind. I was thinking about this a lot in Peru, like being out in the jungle.
Hmm.
Like the trees don't know what time is. They're always at now o'clock. It's always now o'clock.
Yeah.
This is before the fall in the Bible, like Genesis, Adam and Eve, the fall from the kingdom of heaven, from the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden, the kingdom of heaven, are that place of timelessness, are that place of the here and now is all that exists. Everything is perfectly happening in perfect time. But the fall of that was human consciousness, the human ego separating itself from the oneness with reality and then creating concepts and constructs and egos and ideals and personalities and time and space and separation.
Wow. I love that so much. I think we're like diving into like a really good rabbit hole. Because I think
Definitely.
I was reading how like before maybe going out the Bible, it's like how we were one with God and we were in this structured order where everything there's like time and space didn't really exist. And then humans kind of stepped off from that. And then that kind of perpetrated this whole like chaotic cycle that we're kind of living in right now. And we're trying to bring back into that order of existence that existed in the first place.
Yes. Yes, that is where we're returning to.
Yeah.
Now, is it going to happen in our lifetime? I don't know, but we could try.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're living in a pretty special era of time right now. And it seems like, with what's happening with us in Texas, and I'm sure many other locations around the world, it's like we feel that the collective consciousness is elevating to a certain extent. So I
Hmm.
think it is a very special time to be alive.
It's going to be exciting when we look back on this podcast in 30 years,
Yeah.
like when it's 2054 and we're living in like a new Atlantis, basically.
Mhm.
I think it's all possible. Right now, like things look shaky. There's a lot of fear, but everything is happening in divine timing, in divine order.
Mhm. And speaking of divine timing, you're planning on hosting a retreat with Cameron Hogan, like a men's retreat on kind of, bringing into those spiritual practices into cultivating a like-minded group of men who are striving to, become more in tune with themselves and with, maybe their family, everything they're doing. And I'm curious to also hear like what other shifts in society are you noticing nowadays? Because it seems like a lot of people are craving this form of human intimate connection that we've kind of lost
Mm,
as a society by large.
Like what other shifts in terms of like what are people struggling with?
Um, I guess like what do you see like popping up nowadays? I know like retreats are one of them. It's like
Mm,
what other like maybe businesses or communities that you're kind of seeing that are kind of maybe reviving or thriving nowadays that you might see in the near future?
yeah, I see two different sides of it in a way. Like I see the special things, the magical things that are happening here in Austin, Texas. People that are creating businesses that are aligned with God, that are conscious, that are elevating others, that are uplifting others. But I also see such a huge part of the population that has no concept of this. That's all in it for me. I'm going to destroy the forest. I'm going to pillage the earth so I can get my money. So there are places like Austin where that's massively shifting. But, where I grew up in Illinois, good hearted people, people that I truly believe have good hearts and spirits, but they aren't thinking about these ideas that we're talking about, at least not that I know of.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of the programmed life, the unconscious life, the go through the motions life, the listen to the news and watch pro football. That's it. And so I see that, and you know, I see so much potential in so many people to awaken to their potential and realize their true nature. And it's coming. The seeds of that are being planted now, like with these conversations, which is so
Yeah.
beautiful. But I do see a shift in a positive way. Like, okay, two guys, you're 19, I'm 23, like college age kids having these types of conversations, posting them on the internet. That's magical.
Mm. I think we could talk a little bit more about like your childhood because I feel like childhood self really leaves clues as to maybe what we're doing in the future or just kind
Yeah,
of being that more like lens that we haven't really discovered yet that provide us that insight into like who we are going to become in the future. And I'm curious to hear now with the work that you're doing, were there any moments looking back in your childhood that really were that maybe those seeds that were planted that really led you to this path?
definitely. Another great question. I love playing with this idea, like
Yeah.
your zone of genius, what makes you you, what makes you unique, your unique gifts are the things you were doing as a kid, right? That's kind of straight from Naval Ravikant. And I love the
Yeah,
idea. And
for
I
sure.
see it in my life. So as a kid, I was the two things that I really see clearly are one, I was playing quarterback in football. And so I could see the whole field. I was really good at strategy. I was really good at understanding other people and understanding how different positions worked and how different people fit into different positions. And in the seeds of new businesses I'm creating and projects I'm creating, that same pattern is starting to really show itself as I can step back, I can see the whole vision, I can direct people and say, hey, go do this, go do this. And it's just like playing quarterback, which is really interesting because I'm about to go back to college and play quarterback.
Yeah.
There's actually a lot there to unpack, I think. But the other thing is playing a video game called NBA 2K and being like the general manager. So again, kind of stepping back, seeing the whole team, making trades, trying to find the players with the highest potential and
Mhm.
building towards the future. And the obsession with potential was always there. Like, how can I actualize a player's potential? Now it's like, how can I actualize my own potential and then empower other people to actualize their potential? So those are the two main things, playing quarterback and then playing NBA 2K that I see very
Yeah.
clearly as parallels into life now.
That's so awesome. It's like even the smallest, maybe not seemingly important, like activities that we once did as a child, like even playing like NBA 2K, they can serve as that, insight into the future. It's just so cool to see like how the
Yeah.
dots connect when you look at it backwards.
What is it like for you? Like, what dots can you connect backwards?
Oh man, like I mean, I came from a background of classical music. So I think when looking back in my childhood, it's like I really found myself loving the process of creating. For me, it's like music. And now it's like with these podcasts. So I'm always like, I would describe myself as a creator at heart. Like I love creating things, love expressing myself, like an artisan
Yeah.
of sorts. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, trying to tune into that and tapping into that we really love as a child.
Yeah. And in a way, like doing a podcast is like playing music in that you're sharing your unique frequency with
Mm,
people. It just, of course, comes across differently than truly playing an instrument or singing, but
yeah.
you're still expressing yourself and using your throat and using your voice. Like, it's cool, that parallel.
Yeah. And speaking of podcasting, you said that you made your first episode sophomore year of high or college, which is so
Yeah,
cool
I
because
think
I'm in
so.
my sophomore year as well. I mean, I started back like the last month of freshman year, but on a similar
Yeah.
time scale. But I'm curious how you also stumbled across that. And after that first episode, how did you kind of feel about podcasting in general?
Yeah. So I really started to get into learning, like self-directed learning via Joe Rogan. Like Joe Rogan was the
Mm,
seed
yeah.
for me of being curious about podcasts. And he led me down so many different rabbit holes, be it like plant medicine rabbit holes or Andrew Huberman, neuroscience or
Mm,
fitness guys. And I was learning so much and I realized, whoa, I could go ask people questions too. Like I'm a
yeah.
pretty curious guy. So why not? And so yeah, it just became a way for me to connect with people that I probably wouldn't have been able to connect with before. And I'm sure you've experienced the same thing. Like when I
Yeah.
was starting, like I wouldn't have been able to get on a phone call with Danny Miranda unless I paid him like a bunch of money. But oh, if I have a podcast and I can ask him questions, yeah, he probably would do it. So that was another thing for me is like, how can I talk to smart people that I want to be like and ask them questions and not have to
Mm.
pay $1,000 for a coaching call? So that was it for me. How about you? Where was the seed of the inspiration for you?
Dude, it's funny how you mentioned Danny Miranda because I think I discovered his podcast back in September of last year. And I went through a really difficult time in my first year of college. And
Huh?
his podcast kind of became like that guiding lights as he also kind of focused more on spirituality and all that. So following
Yeah.
his journey kind of set the stage like, what if I start my own podcast? And that really clicked because
Uh-huh.
I think 2, 3 years ago, I was talking to my best friend about like, oh, what if you start a podcast? And I brushed it aside, but it's like it came back to me, you know,
Yes.
just like 4 or 5 months ago. So it's really cool to see how, just as you were saying, how the dots connect looking backwards.
That's so cool. It was the same for me. Like I had the
Yeah.
idea maybe the end of my freshman year of college to start a podcast. And I
Mm,
remember I actually recorded one in my dorm room with my
yeah.
friend, 2 hour conversation. And I never posted it. And then like a year later, it came full circle of like, oh, I'm actually ready now to do it. But the idea was planted way before. So
Mm,
that's how the universe works.
yeah. That's awesome. And you were saying how the podcasting was kind of that gateway for you to kind of get into the whole like work that you're doing, like the whole creator stuff. And
Yeah.
how was that? How did that really unlock those opportunities for you?
Yeah, so I mean, at the time, I was just curious about writing and I was curious about
Yeah.
speaking to people who were successful doing stuff online. And so I got on some podcasts with some other like ghostwriters or writers on Twitter. And
Mm,
from there, I started to learn about ghostwriting. And like this guy, Jason Levin, my first podcast episode guest, he was
oh yeah.
talking to me about how he dropped out of college and he was making 15K a month writing
Mhm.
for venture capital founders. And I was like, whoa, like you can do that? Like I had no idea. And so I started
Yeah.
writing for him a little bit, helping him out, and then helping other agency owners out, writing ghostwriting threads for them, and then eventually started my own ghostwriting agency, started writing my own threads for clients, and it gave me the ticket to leave college. So the podcast was the seed
Mm,
of like, what are all the different ways I could go now? How are other people making money online, and how can I do it too? So it was so valuable for that because I could have gone like a many different directions, but
yeah.
ghostwriting made the most sense at the time.
Mm. It's just wild to see like the whole conception of like speaking of that topic of money, it's like how that we've kind of been conditioned to believe that like the only way to make money is just to kind of sacrifice your 9 to 5 just to grind off maybe like less meaningful work for many people. But then it's like you hear this thing called like, making money on the internet. It's like your mind just gets blown. I imagine you at the
Right.
beginning. It's just like, what is this world that's going on here? So what was kind of
Yeah.
that experience, that shift that you noticed?
Yeah, I mean, even now, like I'm still working through it. Like the tarot card reading I just got, the big answer I got from that tarot card reading was like, oh, it doesn't have
Yeah,
to be hard. Even that's a program. It has to be hard. It has to be hard
yeah.
work. And I see my friend Danny. He, I've never seen him work one time. Like maybe he
Huh.
does, like he writes by himself sometimes, he gets on coaching calls, right? But to him, it's not work. And so he's just like so tapped into life in the present moment that just abundance comes to him. And I felt it myself sometimes too. Like, I mean, what time is it now? It's like 5 o'clock, but an average weekday for me, like at 11 a.m., I'm like, I have nothing to do if I don't want to do anything.
Uh-huh.
And there is like that programmed side of me that's like, I should be doing something, right? It's like, what are
Hmm.
you doing? But I could take a nap in the middle of the day and it's okay. Like once you realize that how many hours you put in or how hard you work does not equate to how much money you make, everything starts to shift. And when I left college and started ghostwriting full time, I think I was making like 7K a month, which was like, wow, that's a lot of money for me at the time,
Mhm.
especially living in Argentina where it's very cheap. And I would write for an hour a day, maybe like 2 hours a day. For clients, I would get all my client work done by Wednesday, and I would be like, I have nothing to do. Like, what am I
Yeah.
supposed to do? And I actually felt meaninglessness there and lack of purpose, which I had to discover. Like,
Mm,
what am I supposed to go do now?
yeah.
Because you could have two ghostwriting clients and be making 5 to 7K a month, live in a third world country, and be totally chilling and work 1 or 2 days a week. But then you're like, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to sit around all day and drink cappuccinos? Like that's all I was doing.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but it started to break my ideas of like, oh, whoa, I can make a full-time salary working 5 hours a week. That's wild.
That is wild. Yeah. And I think you had a tattoo on like your arm which says like it's all play when it's
Yeah,
clear.
that's
Yeah.
great. That's cool that you know that. It's right here.
Yeah, I think I was
It's all
hearing
play.
your podcast with Cameron, so I think
Oh,
it was
that's so
towards the
cool.
end that you're talking about. So yeah,
Yeah. Thank you for listening.
of course, man. And it's really, I think the script of like work has to be hard or making money has to be hard is so deeply ingrained in our heads, in our minds, just the condition that we've been placed. That's like when we break free from that and we hear people that are, just playing every day, it's like, dude, that's like impossible, man. Like what would kind of be like
Yeah.
your advice on like how do you like really reframe everything and kind of break down the scripts?
You have to see it to believe it, I'd say.
Uh-huh.
Right? Like if I showed like if one of my friends came and lived with me from home that's like working the 9 to 5
Yeah.
and they saw like what does a day look like for me, like then it would open their mind to like, holy shit, this dude is literally doing nothing. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
doing things. I'm getting on podcasts, I'm writing, I'm
Yeah.
creating an offer, I'm getting on a call, but it's all unstructured. It's kind of all just flowing and happening. So I think you need to see it to believe it. And
Mm.
then it's a continuous process of trust, which I'm still learning that process of trust. That like, oh, it's all good. Like I'm capable of doing this because there's so much fear around money in society and in myself
Mm.
that I am working on dissolving. But the programs are so deep, like money is scarce. You have to work hard to make money, save on to every dollar. The economy's bad. Uh, Trump's president, like all the shit you see out there, right? Like
Yeah.
it's all disempowering you. And then you meet some like crypto guy at a coffee shop
Yeah.
who made $5 million last year and he literally doesn't do it. He just sits around all day and he made $5 million. It's like what? Like money is just a number on a screen, really.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It's wild. And you've kind of been getting into the whole, like the stuff with like personality tests, like tarot cards, astrology. It's also side note, I'm also an INFJ, so it's like really cool to be a
Nice.
fellow. Yeah, but um for people who are like, I guess also on the side of spirituality, it's like, what are these things and how do they actually enhance your life in the better?
Yeah, they're just little maps, right? So
Hmm.
the personality test, like the fact that we're both INFJs, that's just like a map to more self-understanding. It's like, okay, I'm kind of introverted. I think I'm intuitive. I feel through things and I tend to judge outside and inside. But that label of INFJ cannot actually articulate the experience of what is it like to
Mm.
be Jack or what is it like to be Justin. The other maps, be it astrology readings or human design or Enneagram or all these other things, they're just other maps to create a more three-dimensional understanding of self. Rather than attaching to one map, can you have 10 maps all around that you can pull from and then create a more holistic understanding and philosophy? Tarot
Mm.
cards are a little different because it's like tarot cards to me are like little winks or clues from the universe
Yeah.
of okay, I'm gonna feel out this deck. I'm sending good intentions to this deck of cards. I'm gonna pull one, and then okay, what does this card usually mean? How can I interpret it through my unique situation to make a better decision going forward?
Mm. I love the analogy you bring up. It's like you're kind of collecting different pieces of the puzzle, like the map. and then you're trying to like
Yes.
bridge together, like creating a more cohesive picture of like yourself, just as more understanding better of yourself and how you operate. So it's really cool to bring
Yeah.
that analogy. Yeah.
Imagine, okay, so like you live in LA
Yeah.
and you know LA probably pretty well. But imagine how much more context and how much better you would know LA if you knew all the surrounding counties too, and where
Mm,
the roads all come in and where the gas stations are at all the surrounding areas rather than just your apartment. So it's like, can we create a holistic structure of self understanding via different sciences? Like, even astrology is a science. It's an
mm,
ancient form of science and a study of the stars because this didn't click for me until very recently, but like,
mm,
before I was named Jack or before you were named Jeston, we were an energetic being and a frequency that came onto Earth at a certain date and time when the stars were in a certain place.
yeah.
And so, at some deep fundamental level, we are made of the same stuff as stars. We're made of stardust. We're made of the
Mm,
same atoms and molecules as stars. And so, how could it not be that they are influencing us in some way?
yeah, that's a really cool observation. And what other realizations did you kind of come to recently?
Oh,
Yeah, it's a loaded question again.
what did it come to recently? Man, there's so many. I mean, like, this journey to Peru was just full of things. I would say how much I love my friends, how much I love my mom, how much I love my dad, how much I love my family. That really sunk in.
I love that so much. And I think it was
Yeah,
also how like, as human beings, our default state is at peace, at love. And you were kind of saying
yeah,
how we've we've had this conditioning where we're led to believe that we aren't this our default state isn't love. And now it's like the whole human experience is like stripping away the things that aren't unconditional love and beginning to tap into to realize that we are love at the most fundamental basis level.
yes. That's beautifully articulated. I
Yeah.
love that you're able to see this already. And I don't mean to say like already like you're young, but you are young and you're 19 and you're realizing this. It's so incredible. It's so great.
Yeah. It's so awesome to just have this internet as this medium to meet people who are really tapped into themselves. And I think even like despite the physical distance, it's like even through like a podcast, it's like I can feel the energy that's you're transferring over, like just the way
Yeah,
you speak and how in alignment that you're living. So it's really cool just seeing that impact that we can create, even on a digital
thank you.
standpoint.
Yeah, and you get to become that light for everybody around you at college too. Like the
Mm,
realizations that you're having and the understanding of our nature as love. Other people in your school are open to that idea. They maybe just haven't heard it yet.
yeah. I guess maybe on a similar topic, it's like you're saying how when you're starting out this journey, you're feeling a little bit lonely, and then I definitely like resonate a lot with that. And what were some of like the ways that you've been able to kind of connect with people on a more deeper level while embarking on this perhaps more unconventional path?
Yeah, I think moving to Austin has been great. Finding those
Yeah.
people who are so aligned. And I think there is this period of time where you start to break away from the normal way of doing things and you
Mhm.
go to this dip of like, who am I going to talk to? But then you emerge on the other side of it as a new person at a new frequency, and then those right people come into your field. So that's happening right now in this podcast, but
Yeah.
in person too. Like more and more people are going to pop up that are on the same wave as long as you're in that elevated frequency yourself to see it and to be open to them. And then it comes full circle too of how can I be around the people watching football or drinking beer or at the party and still feel that same level of spiritual connection or spiritual depth, even if on the surface all we're doing is watching football and drinking beer. No,
Mhm.
there's something deeper there too. If we remove the judgment, that's
Gotcha.
been a big
Gotcha.
thing for me recently. In the past, I'd say few months, was I started on the personal development spiritual path. I demonized everything that wasn't that. I said, oh, this is bad. This way of living is bad. Drinking beer and watching football is bad. And then you come full circle to, oh, wait, no, it's actually all God manifesting itself. And it's all beautiful as long as I'm not judging it. Because if I'm judging that, what am I
Mm,
judging in myself?
yeah. It's cool, like how you're mentioning how like you're kind of being a beacon of light and then being at this elevated frequency and then like magically other people come towards you. And even like
Yes.
I've only started my online journey for like the past 4 or 5 months, but even then, like meeting people like yourself and just having the craziest experiences, just meeting people, it's like that is so cool. And I think that maybe more people could tap into that as well. It's a magical experience.
It is magical. And it's so great that you're doing this podcast and developing these connections and asking these questions. Like, it's going to serve you so well. It's awesome.
Also, and I think one thing I like to do with guests is like I like to go through like their tweets, some of their more like really like
Yeah,
resonating tweets, and we could
that's a
kind of
cool
go through
idea.
yeah, go through some of yours as well. And I think one of my
Let's do it.
favorites is you're 6 to 12 months of consistency away from being called lucky for the rest of your life. I love
Yeah.
that so much.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Thank you. Yeah. That one came from oftentimes people will say that, like, oh, you're so lucky. Like, oh, you get to travel around or you get to work for two
mhm,
hours a day at a coffee shop. And oh, you're so lucky. It must be so nice. But that reality is available to all of us. And it was the 6 to 12 months of grinding in my dorm room at 4:30 in the morning while everybody was partying that led to that. So it was the discipline to be consistent during that time that now leads to a lifestyle that people say is lucky,
mhm.
but it's available to everybody.
Yeah.
You have to
It-
want it bad enough, though. You have to want it more than anything else in the world.
mm. I think it was a really cool like analogy how like there's this experiment with like mice and they were saying how like we are more motivated to take action when we're running away from something versus running towards. And when there's like as
Yeah.
great of a catalyst as like this nightmare that we want to escape from, or not maybe not escape, but like run away from, that can serve as that fuel to take action to then do the decisions that we have to do to guarantee that next stage of our lifestyle.
Yeah. I know that experiment too. And, I look back and I say
Yeah.
it's true. Like the fear of working a job is what propelled me to take more action, but it
Yeah.
didn't actually get me into alignment.
Mm.
Now, like, yeah, maybe you can run faster if you're running from fear, but maybe you
Yeah.
don't want to run faster. Maybe you just want to be present and be peaceful. And so,
Mhm.
what if we were just playing from love rather than running from fear?
Yeah.
That's how I reframe it now.
I love the reframe. It's like now we're like more in the present, and now it's like how do I describe it? But like more living from love rather than fear.
Yeah,
So that's a good
definitely.
shift. Yeah. And another one is like the trick is you gotta realize you're dreaming in the first place. I'm I'm curious to hear more what your thoughts on that one.
Dude, that's from this song. Um, a song I heard at a rave. It's
Yeah.
called, what is it called? 1200 micrograms or something like this. And it's
Uh-huh.
a psychedelic trance song. And
Yeah.
it goes hard. It's good. And I heard it at raves this summer in Thailand. And my friend was the DJ and he would play it. And in between the song, like a guy would come in and say, the trick is you realize you gotta be dreaming in the first place.
Yeah.
So I just decided to tweet it. And I think actually in that tweet below it, I link the song. So if you want to listen to it, you can.
Hmm. Yeah.
But I mean, this is very fundamental. Like Hindu philosophy is like everything is Maya, everything is an illusion.
Hmm.
Like our waking state, it's all a dream, right? When you wake up from a dream, like at night, you
Yeah.
realize it was all a dream and it wasn't real. When you wake up from the illusion of your separate self and your ego and your life story, you also realize it was all a dream.
Ooh.
And again, I'm not there 100%, but I
Yeah.
know it to be true.
Uh-huh. I on maybe like a side note, but on the topic of dreams, what are like dreams that kind of really open your eyes into your
Oh my
life?
gosh.
Yeah.
Another great question. During my retreat in Peru, a dream came through to me that felt like a whisper from God to go play football again. Like in the dream, I was
Mm,
touring a college with my high school friends, and
yeah.
I saw like a baseball field, and I had the idea, oh, I could go play baseball at this college. And I woke up and I was like, what the fuck? Wait, maybe my subconscious, the details were wrong. The school was not actually a real school. That was in the dream. It
Hmm.
was like Yale University, but it was in the middle of a cornfield in Iowa. And the sport was wrong. It was baseball. But the idea, the bigger idea of you can go back to college and go to a good small school in the Midwest and play football, a sport, that clicked. And I woke up at 4 a.m. in the middle of the jungle of like, oh my God, thank you, God. Thank you for showing me this. So
Yeah.
your dreams are God whispering to you. Your subconscious mind is whispering to you in dreams. They're very valuable.
Mm. One thing I love is how now you're reframing college in such a completely different light. It's like before, maybe it was for that status, for that approval. Now it's like, I just want to play. I want to play football. And it's like,
Yes,
I love
yes.
that shift, man. Yeah, of
Thank you. It's such a great way to describe it. Thank you for saying that. It's so true.
course. Another one is like, you are destined to make millions of dollars pursuing your passions and creating from your hearts. It is the degree to which we
Uh-huh.
believe and upon it that determines whether or not it manifests.
Mm, that's a good one for me to hear right now.
Yeah.
Right? These are reminders to myself. These are tweets to
Hmm.
myself. Like, it's true for me, it's true for you. We're smart enough, we're capable enough, and we have the capacity to build projects and businesses that uplift other people that are truly from the heart, that come full circle. I heard from an astrologer a great point. He says, you're never going to have to worry about money in your life if you can engineer people's gratitude towards you. I was like, engineer people's gratitude towards me. That's interesting. I never heard it put that way. So it's
Yeah.
like, how can you make other people grateful for something you create? And that is money. That comes in the form of money. So
Wow. Mhm.
why not? Why not make millions of dollars serving humanity? Why not?
Mhm.
Asking myself, why the fuck not?
Yeah. I think something interesting I've noticed recently, it's like, I was actually crazy story, but I was like in a Bel Air mansion, you know, helping out at a party, just cold my way. And I remember I was playing piano and everything. And just the gratitude I felt for people like approaching me after that. It's like, oh my God, like your music really helped, really like made the party so much better experience. And I think maybe that's the point you were talking about. It's like, how do you create something that people can really be like, oh my God, like you really help my life, you really made my day. I think that's where
Yeah.
the transfer money really comes from.
Yeah, and I think the answer to that question is like, what would I want either now or what would I want a year ago or 2 years ago? And how can I build that?
Mm, love that. And one last tweet I had like in my doc was like, before pursuing your desires, find out if they're truly yours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds like something Naval would say, which is so funny. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, most of us we have desires that were assigned to us, right?
Mm.
And it's the typical path. It's like go to college, get good grades, get a good job, get a house, get a mortgage, right? But like,
Mhm.
wait, whose desires are those? Where do those come from? Are they actually yours? Are they what your soul wants? Are they what your heart wants? Or are they what other people programmed you to think? So you're only going to
Mhm.
find the answers to those questions by sitting with yourself for a very long time and asking yourself the question, what do I really want? In the absence
Mhm.
of other people's expectations or approval. That's how you find what you
Mhm.
really want. Remove everybody else outside, including your parents, including your friends, including your teachers, including the social media gurus. What do you want internally?
Yeah. It's cool because I think the social media landscape is like there's so much advice thrown out there on like, okay, how you should live this way, you should live that way, you should do this, do that. But then it's like at the end of the day, it's like you're with yourself and it's like you have all these voices outside. It's like, what do you actually want inside? And that's
Yes.
a really big challenge, especially in, the modern age when we're kind of letting other people do that grunt work of like deciding what we want to do for life. So That's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
really good.
We like to let
Yeah.
other people think for us.
Hmm.
And the only way to escape that and become free is to sit with yourself. And I'm
Yeah.
so excited to sit with myself tonight. Like I'm so excited. I'm gonna sit with myself for the next 3 hours and try to like sort some things out because I have a lot of uncertainty right now. There's a lot of lack of clarity. My life can go in a million different directions. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I used to say I need to go listen to a podcast or I need to go listen to a book,
Hmm.
but really I just need to listen to my heart and listen to myself.
Hmm.
So I'm starting to crave that solitude.
Yeah. How does that practice look like? Do you just sit in a room by yourself, just meditating, or like with a pen or like a notepad?
The
How does that
practice
look?
just looks like, I mean, I'll probably just lay down for this. Like if I'm doing a formal seated meditation for like training concentration, I'll sit
Yeah.
up. But for this, I'm going to lay on my couch and just think and feel. And when a certain thought triggers of like, okay, I could go do this, how does it respond in the body? Oh, I had this interaction yesterday. Why is my body closing off like this? Why am I
Mm.
like jerking my head? What does that all mean? And you can start to connect bodily responses to emotions and thoughts. And if I do, like, I'll have a notebook there, I'll have my phone there. I won't say I can't use it, but the default is just being, getting in the yin energy, being, doing nothing. And from that place, oftentimes, immense clarity will come forth. Where then I
Mm.
write something down in a journal or I send a text or I make a note to myself. But literally, it's just the art of doing nothing.
Yeah. I love that so much. And I guess we can wrap off this conversation with, the question is like, what are you working right now? And kind of what do you see next for you?
It's such a good question because I don't know.
I love that.
I
Yeah.
mean, let me
Just
give
for
a little
play.
bit better answer.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I have a retreat coming up November 21st to 24th in Austin, Texas with Cameron Hogan. It's going to be so fun. It's called Life's Purpose Men's Retreat. So if you're curious, it's on my Twitter, it's on my social medias. You can find it. Or send me a message if you're interested or you're on the fence. Happy to talk. I have a few different like one-on-one packages. So I'm helping people launch their first cohort, like a group coaching program
Yeah,
before
I
January
think I saw
1st.
that. Yeah. Hmm.
If you're curious, I've done it.
Yeah.
I've launched a bunch of cohorts, so I like it. I get to play quarterback. I understand the strategy. So if you want guidance for that, message me. Um, I also have other like one-on-one containers that can be flexible based on people's needs. Like if they want to have 2 calls a week, okay, what does that look like? If you want 1 call, what does it look like? You can find all this stuff on my website, jackmoses.co. And then beyond that, be on the lookout for like a cohort that I might be launching with Danny Miranda and Nick Sweeney. We'll
That's so
see.
awesome.
That's
Yeah.
as of an hour ago. So it's really fresh. That's
Uh-huh.
what I'm going to go sit with tonight. And then, yeah, I might be going back to play college football. So that is all in the works. I also have a newsletter dropping about ayahuasca, and I have a book that is floating around that's slowly being written called Trust Yourself.
Yeah. Awesome. Everything is unfolding at perfect timing. Yeah.
Thank you for
It's all
that.
fluid.
It's
Yeah.
true. I need that. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, man. Dude, I had an amazing chat with you, man. I think,
Yeah,
we're
man.
in that
Me
zone.
too.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
me
been an
too.
honor having you on, man.
An hour just flew by, and guess what? It's 5:19. Of
Yeah.
course, 19.
Oh my
Um,
God.
of course, of course,
Yeah.
of course. But
Yeah.
thank you so much. You're an incredible interviewer. I am so excited to follow your journey, and I'm so excited to do this again if you want to at some point, maybe a year down the road, like see where we're at.
Yeah, man.
But man, like I'm just very excited to watch your journey. You've got a gift for this.
No, I appreciate it so much. Honored to, have you on, and I'm also excited to hear more about, what you're posting online and just hopefully maybe see you in person one day.
Yeah, man, for sure. Come out to Austin. Or I might be
Yeah.
in Illinois. Who knows? I might be in California at some point too.
Awesome, man.